Adidas, Nike. Do you know what's common between these brands? They all outsource manufacturing to China. Look at the numbers. 70% of Walmart products come from China. 75% of Apple products are made in China. 25% of Adidas products, 46% of Nike's. These are big numbers. And they make you wonder, what does China have? Why do brands prefer manufacturing there? Even now, when China's global image is in a shambles, when questions are being asked of its policies, its treatment of the Uyghur Muslims, its crackdown on the COVID-19 protesters, its cruelties on the forced laborers, and its suppression of democratic movements. How then is China still the world's factory? Why are brands finding it tough to decouple from Beijing? Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas Plus with me, Molly Gambhir. And I come to you with a question. Why do foreign firms find it hard to leave China? We know they want to. They've been talking about it for the last 2 years. Look at some recent headlines. Companies are fleeing China for friendlier shores. Big multinational companies moving out of China. Yes, manufacturing really is leaving China. These are all stories from the last 2 years. But do they depict the reality? Not really. You see, China still holds the cards for global supply chains. A host of businesses and companies still invest in the country. Have a look at these numbers. In the first 4 months of 2022, foreign direct investment into China grew by 26.1% on a year-on-year basis. Last we checked, it stood at a whopping $74.47 billion. What does this tell you? That despite all their lofty pledges, multinational firms are still relying on Chinese supply chains, and they seem to have no intention of ending this reliance. I am not saying this, surveys are. Take this one for instance. It was conducted by the EU Chamber of Commerce in China. It asked 372 companies and investors if they were going to shift their investments to other markets. The results were as follows. 25% of the respondents said they were considering shifting investments, but a whopping 75% said they did not have any such plans. A survey by the American Chamber of Commerce showed similar results. It asked companies whether they had reduced their investments in China. In 2021, 29% respondents said the investments had decreased. In 2022, only 26% of the respondents had said that the investments had reduced. The same survey asked another question, whether China's COVID-19 policies will have any impact on their investment plans. In 2021, 30% said no, it wouldn't impact their scale of investments. In 2022, the figure grew to 44%, meaning 44% respondents said China's policies have not impacted their investment plans. And what does that tell you? That yes, companies want to move out of China, but they are too hesitant to let go of what China offers. Take the case of Starbucks. Earlier this year, the coffee giant suspended its economic outlook as the COVID-19 lockdown hammered its sales in China. But a few months later, Starbucks said it still expects its China business to be bigger than the US in the long term. Same story with Apple. Earlier this year, the company said it was relocating its operations to nearby nations. It said the COVID-19 disruptions were hurting its business. But despite this, Apple's smartphone shipments in China jumped sharply in the second quarter of 2022. The company shipped 9.9 million iPhones in China, a 25% jump in shipments from last year. To put it simply, the talk of leaving China seems like hogwash. Not only are companies not relocating, but they are also reaping profits in China. And what explains that? A host of factors. To start with, manufacturing in China is cheap. The country is home to 1.41 billion people. if we go by the law of supply-demand, the supply of workers in China is greater than the demand. And this ensures that wages in China stay low. Multinational firms don't have to burn a hole in their pockets. Reason number 2, China delivers a huge output in less time. The reason is once again China's huge labor pool. It helps to produce in bulk and at affordable costs without missing deadlines. Chinese labor can produce a new product for you at the drop of a hat. Reason number 3, lower compliance. Chinese factories don't follow laws and guidelines which the rest of the world does, especially when it comes to child labor, forced labor, health and safety norms, wage laws, and environmental considerations. Chinese factories employ minors as labor. They have long shift hours, they don't give the workers compensation insurance, and they definitely don't care about the environment. They pollute to their heart's content. This makes it easier for global brands to manufacture in China, and they can avoid the rules and regulations they would be subjected to in other countries. Reason number 4, easy market expansion opportunities. And this one's fairly simple. When you have products made in China, chances are you can also sell those products in the local market. With over 1.4 billion potential customers, you get the promise of good returns. And there is data to prove this. According to one estimate, Chinese citizens account for a quarter of the global retail sales, nearly a third of jewelry and handbag sales, and 2/5 of automobile sales. And that's not even all. According to The Economist, over 13 multinational firms report a revenue of $10 billion each year in China. Which multinationals are these? The obvious suspects: Apple, BMW, Intel, Siemens, Tesla, and Walmart. They are all minting money in the Chinese market. So the revenue is a key factor as to why brands don't leave China. I have some more numbers for you. In September this year, the number of Starbucks stores in China reached 6,000. The company said it plans to increase its stores by 50% and establish over 9,000 stores in the country by 2025. And then we have Apple. In October this year, Apple's monthly market share in China reached 25%. This was its highest ever monthly market share in the country. In fact, during October this year, 1 in every 4 devices sold in China was an iPhone. The iPhone 14 Pro Max being the best-selling device. Same story with BMW. This year, the group reported strong sales in China. Its revenues grew by 1/3 from last year. They stood at $38.74 billion. And then we have the Volkswagen Group. According to a report, it saw its recovery in China accelerate with a 26% increase in deliveries. And lastly, even brands like L'Oreal are reporting profits in China. In a statement earlier this year, the L'Oreal Group said that its sales in the Chinese mainland grew 20.5% in 2022. So at the end of the day, relations between China and the West may be on shaky ground, but Western brands are still making heavy profits in China. And if we go by their own statements, their revenues will only increase in the years ahead. So the next time you come across a report which says global brands are leaving China, take that with a pinch of salt. China is still at the top of its game. It still is, for all possible reasons, the world's factory.